What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Critical Hit Reviews, where I take a critical look at games, break down what works, what doesn't, and what I think could make the experience even better for fans like us. Today, I'm talking about a game I've been hyped for, and now finally had the chance to dive into: Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is Ubisoft's long-awaited leap into feudal Japan, and it gives us two very different protagonists: Yasuke, the legendary African samurai, and Neo, a skilled shinobi assassin. I've put a good amount of hours into it, explored the open world, tested both characters' playstyles, and really tried to see what this game does differently from past Assassin's Creed titles. So let's break it down: the good, the not so good, and what I personally love to see added for players in the future. First off, the world. Honestly, feudal Japan has never looked so alive in a game. The environments are gorgeous: bamboo forests, snowy mountain temples, little fishing villages. It all feels handcrafted. I actually found myself stopping just to soak in sunsets or watch wildlife move around me. The game also has a seasonal cycle, and it makes exploring so much more dynamic. Riding through an area in the fall feels completely different than going back in the spring. Small touches like petals blowing in the wind or villagers reacting differently depending on weather really sold me on the immersion. If you're into world building and exploration, this is easily one of the most satisfying Assassin's Creed maps to date. It's big, but it's also dense. There's plenty to see without feeling like you're just walking through empty space. Now let's talk about the two playable characters, because that's one of the boldest choices this game makes. Playing as Neo feels exactly like you'd hope being a shinobi would. She's fast, stealthy, and her toolkit is all about precision: smoke bombs, shuriken, grappling hooks. Sneaking into castles with her is incredibly tense, and if you enjoy the stealth side of Assassin's Creed, she's the one you'll probably favor. On the flip side, Yasuke is all about raw power. He's a tank compared to Neo. His duels feel heavy and cinematic. Every swing of his sword feels like it could end a fight. Playing him almost feels like a different genre, more like a samurai action game. I really like how switching between the two changes the pacing. When I needed a quieter, tactical approach, I'd take Neo. When I wanted to storm into battle and test my skills in duels, Yasuke was my guy. It keeps the gameplay from getting stale. Combat in Shadows is one of the best upgrades Ubisoft has made in years. Duels are slower, more deliberate, and there's a real emphasis on stance and timing. You can't just button mash. You have to break enemy posture, deflect at the right time, and punish openings. When you pull it off, it feels amazing. Stealth has also been refined. The grappling hook changes everything. Climbing into guarded castles or slipping through rooftops is smoother and more vertical than past games. And enemies actually react more intelligently. They'll search properly if they notice something off, which makes sneaking feel more rewarding. That said, there are still moments where the formula feels familiar. You will run into the classic clear this base or follow this target style missions that Assassin's Creed has been using for years. They're not bad, but after a while they can feel repetitive. I found myself enjoying the main story missions a lot more because they had unique set pieces compared to some of the side content. The story is set during the Sengoku period, which is already an incredible backdrop full of conflict and shifting alliances. Without spoiling anything, I'll just say the narrative really leans into the contrast between Yasuke and Neo, not just in combat, but in how they see the world and what they're fighting for. What surprised me was how much everyday culture is woven in. I found myself stumbling into tea houses, watching villagers practice arts, and even moments where you can just slow down and interact with animals. Those little touches made the world feel alive instead of just being a battlefield. That said, the pacing of the story can sometimes drag. There are stretches where you're doing smaller side tasks that don't push the plot forward, and I think trimming that fat would have made the main narrative hit even harder. One thing I didn't talk much about earlier is the side activities. Assassin's Creed Shadows does a really solid job of making exploration feel rewarding. You'll stumble into bandit camps, hidden shrines, and villages where random little events unfold. There's also a stronger focus on building relationships with characters in the world. Some NPCs don't just hand you a quest and vanish. They'll pop back up later, or their stories actually progress as you keep playing. It feels less like a checklist and more like you're weaving into the community. And let me just say, the shrines and temples are some of the best designed locations in the series. They aren't just pretty backdrops. They feel like puzzles in themselves, with multiple ways and depending on whether you're sneaking, grappling, or fighting your way through. I actually enjoyed re-exploring areas just to see how differently Nao and Yasu could handle them. Customization also deserves a mention. Both characters have their own gear and skill trees, and the way you kit them out really changes your approach. With Nao, I leaned heavily into stealth upgrades, smaller noise radius, quicker assassinations, extra tools. With Yasuke, I went for heavy armor and stagger-focused sword techniques, and he turned into a walking fortress. The fact that they don't share one single tree is a good thing, because it pushes you to experiment and specialize. It feels like you're actually developing two distinct warriors rather than just splitting points between the same build. Visually, the armor and weapon designs are gorgeous, and I found myself actually caring about how my characters looked because the aesthetic matched the period so well. Something I was a little worried about going in was whether enemies would get repetitive. In some older Assassin's Creeds, once you figured out the pattern, fights started feeling like rinse and repeat. In Shadows, the variety is stronger. You've got regular foot soldiers, archers, spearmen, and then more elite duelists who can actually match Yasuke blow for blow. With Nao, it's more about avoiding groups and carefully thinning out enemies, because she really can't tank hits the way Yasu can. The game also encourages you to think differently depending on the environment. Fighting on a bridge feels totally different than brawling in a bamboo grove, because spacing, visibility, and elevation actually matter. It's not Dark Souls level difficult, but it's challenging enough to keep you alert. Another thing I really appreciated is how Shadows leans into immersion. Small details make a big difference. Villagers bowing to Yasuke as he walks through town, kids playing in the streets, even guards gossiping about political tension. And while Assassin's Creed has always dabbled in roleplay, this one nails the fantasy better. When I was Yasuke, I felt like a samurai with respect and power. When I was Nao, I felt like a shadow slipping through the cracks of society. I think that's why the dual protagonist system works so well. It isn't just two movesets, it's two world perspectives. You're role-playing different sides of feudal Japan. Looking forward, I do think there's room for Ubisoft to build on this foundation. For example, I'd love to see more assassination variety, unique targets with their own routines and defenses, almost like mini Hitman-style puzzles. Right now, some assassinations feel a little too straightforward. I also think Yasuke's samurai path could benefit from a bigger emphasis on dueling culture. Imagine DLC that added tournaments, legendary duels, or even rival samurai who travel across the land looking for challengers. That would be incredible for replay value. For Nao, I'd like to see expanded stealth tools, poison darts, more ways to manipulate guards, or even disguises. Since stealth is such a big part of her appeal, giving players more toys to play with would keep her gameplay fresh. And of course, I think everyone would love additional regional expansions, new castles, coastal villages, maybe even naval missions that touch on Japan's trade and exploration at the time. Shadows already set such a strong foundation that DLC could easily push it into legendary territory. Another thing I haven't mentioned is the sound design. The music in Shadows really nails the mood. It shifts from soft, traditional Japanese instruments while exploring villages to intense, pounding drums during duels. Even little details, like the crunch of footsteps on gravel or the whisper of a blade leaving its sheath, make the world feel alive. It's subtle, but it adds a huge layer of immersion. Something I spent more time with than I expected was the photo mode. Shadows has a surprisingly robust system. You can freeze action, adjust lighting, swap filters, and capture Yasuke or Nao in some truly cinematic moments. I actually found myself wandering the map just looking for the perfect shot, which says a lot about how beautiful the environments are. On top of that, the game has decent replayability, different approaches to missions, alternate paths. Performance-wise, I had a smooth experience. On my setup, the frame rate was stable, and I didn't hit many bugs at all, which, let's be real, isn't always the case with Assassin's Creed launches. The upgraded engine really shows off here. Lighting is gorgeous, especially at night with lanterns or fire effects, and the destructible environments add a nice extra layer of realism. Shadows feels built for current-gen hardware, and it pays off. So where do I land on Assassin's Creed Shadows? Honestly, this is the most engaged I've felt with the series in a long time. The setting is phenomenal, the dual character system adds real variety, and combat finally feels weighty and rewarding again. It's not perfect, some repetitive quest structures drag it down, and the pacing could be tighter. But overall, if you're a fan of Assassin's Creed, Japanese history, or just stealth action games in general, this one is definitely worth your time. For me, it's a critical hit, not quite a perfect strike, but easily one of the best Assassin's Creed entries in years. Alright, that's it for my review of Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'd love to hear what you think. Are you more into Neo's stealthy style or Yasuke's samurai duels? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Critical Hit Reviews for more deep dives and honest takes on the biggest games out there. Thanks for watching, and until next time, may all your strikes be critical.